Welcome to day 10 of the Women of Advent podcast. I'm Sarah.
I'm Mandy.
And I'm Tammy.
And today we're looking at birthing God's promises and what that means for us. We're taking a look at Elizabeth's joy in the fulfillment of a long-awaited promise. And in order to kind of get into that, we're examining a question of what promises do you feel God has called you to birth in your context?
This is a tough question.
Tough question.
Yeah, I struggled with this one too.
Okay.
I think it's hard for me to notice until it's in fruition. So one thing that I do know there's a call on my heart and I have to birth into the world one way or another is about noticing barriers to belonging in community and seeing where they pop up. Because I'm in a church setting, that's the setting that I operate in. And so noticing where these barriers are and then advocating to address them. And so I know that that's a call that's going to be woven into my ministry because it's been placed so deeply on my heart.
That's beautiful.
I think with this question, it's important to remember that birth is not a simple process, that it's labor and push. I loved reading the book by Valerie Carr, Revolutionary Love, and she talks about that the whole birth process, anytime that something is becoming, it's hard and it's work and there's sweat and there's tears and there's joy.
Yeah.
And so any promise that we're living into, it's not going to be easy.
Yeah.
And so if you think that you're living into a promise and it's coming across really easy, great.
Yeah.
And be asking yourself, is there more to be living into that? If you're not kind of laboring a bit and pushing into it a bit, are you birthing it?
Yeah.
And that you reminded me of my own challenging birth story with my daughter. It took over 3 days in the hospital to get her to come to fruition. And it was hard. And that in contrast with my own birth story from my mother, where I was born on the floor on accident, is a very different in terms of the waiting and the speed and what happens in different bodies that go through this, but also different calls coming to birth can look so different in our lives.
And the promise that God puts on one of our hearts may come across easily, and for someone else, it might be days or years, as we saw in Elizabeth's story earlier in the week, of work.
Yeah. I struggled with this because I could not come up with something I felt like God's promised me, or something I'm like, I don't know, like striving for I wasn't sure. And so I was just kind of thinking about what are some invitations that God's maybe invited me to recently. And I've kind of felt like I'm walking into a time where it's an invitation to a little more slowness and some rest, because I can generally put off my rest until my body's like, okay, lay down, you're sick now. But it does make me wonder if maybe this is maybe I'm prepping for something. Like we were talking about labor and birth, like a lot of times when you're expecting a baby in any capacity, there's prep work, right? There's nesting, you're building a nursery, you're going to Target by yourself, you're going to the movies, like you're doing those things before baby comes for yourself. So I don't know what this next season holds.
Yeah, and there's a gestation time, right? There's this waiting period that's given there that then draws you in to prepare. And sometimes the waiting can look like sleep. It can look inactive.
Our rhythm for today is to identify one promise God has placed on your heart and write a small action, one step that you can take to nurture it today.